General, Royal Highnesses, Honourable Foreign Ministers, High Representatives of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all to this annual coordination meeting of the Foreign Ministers of Member States of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We are happy to revive this annual tradition which was interrupted by the COVID pandemic. We commend the leadership role of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as the OIC Summit Chair. We also express an appreciation and gratitude to the OIC Secretary General and the General Secretary for facilitating the organization of this important meeting. Today's annual coordination meeting, as our other periodic meetings, is being held to further coordinate the positions, especially on issues on the agenda of the current United Nations General Assembly. It is also an opportunity to reinforce political will on following up actions on resolutions and decisions of the OIC, including those adopted at the 48th session of Foreign Ministers in Islamabad on March 2022. Excellencies, we are meeting at a critical moment in world history. The structures for the preservation of international peace and security established in 1945 are under considerable stress. Simultaneously, a series of shocks, the COVID pandemic, rising commodity prices, climate change, and contracting world economies have halted progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals in the developing world, and as a result, intensified inequality within and among states, including many Islamic countries. The Islamic world must evolve collectively and concentrate responses to the political, economic, climate, and other challenges contracting the world today. In 1945, Islamic countries were unable to express, advocate, or defend the vital interests of their people in the creation of the first post-war world order. Most of us do not participate in the formulation of the UN Charter. As a result, no Islamic nation is a permanent member of the Security Council with veto rights. 75 years ago, the peoples of the Muslim world are free and independent today. The current world order is undergoing transition. The Islamic countries must carefully respond to these emerging realities and ensure that their vital interests are fully protected. As the second largest international organization, our collective effort should seek to preserve the national security, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of each of our member states. To this end, we must ensure universal and consistent adherence to the principles of peace and justice reflected in the UN and OIC charters. We must promote peace with justice in all disputes and conflicts within or outside the Islamic world. Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, Palestine is our common cause. We must not forget that the raison d'etre of the OIC was to promote peace and justice for the people of occupied Palestine and to free Al-Quds al-Sharif. We must secure self-determination for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. They must have their own state with pre-1967 borders, with Al-Quds al-Sharif as the capital of a free Palestinian state. This may seem a daunting task today, yet I am convinced that the arc of history and the hand of the Almighty bend towards justice. I am pleased that the Committee of the Six has had in-depth discussions and broken new grounds in dealing with this collective challenge. Pakistan remains steadfast in supporting the Palestinian cause. Kashmir is also our common cause. Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan are bound irreparably by geography, faith, history, and culture. Kashmir is Pakistan and Pakistan is Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir was forcibly occupied. The Security Council decided that the people of Jammu and Kashmir must be able to exercise their recognized rights to self-determination through the UN-supervised plebiscite. India has resisted from its commitment to implement the resolution of the Security Council and respect the wishes of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And since August 2019, India has taken unilateral and illegal measures to undermine the internationally recognized disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir. It has increased its military deployment there to 900,000 troops and resorted to a brutal campaign of repression, including extrajudicial and custodial killings of Kashmiris, abduction of 15,000 young Kashmiri boys, many of whom were tortured, incarceration of the entire Kashmiri leadership, and the burning of villages and neighborhoods as collective punishment. This campaign of oppression is turbocharged by the ideology of Hindutva and hatred of Muslims. The organization Genocide Watch has warned of the possibility of genocide in occupied Kashmir. After 3 years, India's campaign of colonial annexation has not succeeded. It will never succeed. With the will of Almighty Allah, the people of Jammu and Kashmir will win their historic struggle for freedom and self-determination. Pakistan will continue to extend full political, diplomatic, and moral support to the Kashmiri cause. Pakistan desires peace with India, yet it is evident that unless the Kashmir dispute is resolved, there will be no durable peace between Pakistan and India. We are prepared to resume a sincere dialogue with India for a peaceful resolution of Jammu and Kashmir dispute. However, the onus is on India to create a conducive environment for such a dialogue. It must rescind its unilateral and illegal measures instigated on the 5th of August 2019, halt its human rights violations in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and halt and reverse the demographic changes in the occupied state. The oppressed people of occupied Jammu and Kashmir now more than ever rely on the OIC and the Muslim world to uphold their just cause for self-determination and freedom from occupied rule. Excellencies, after 40 years, there's a real opportunity to restore durable peace and security in Afghanistan and in the region. Today, there is no civil war. One government controls the entire country. We must build on this progress and prevent those forces who wish to revive conflict, create more refugees, and intensify the threat of terrorism. It was in this spirit that Pakistan, together with Saudi Arabia, convened the 17th extraordinary session of the OIC Foreign Ministers in Islamabad on the 19th of December 2021. Together, we agreed that the OIC can and must play a leading role in supporting the people of Afghanistan. We agreed to establish an OIC humanitarian trust fund, appoint a special envoy of the OIC Secretary General, launched an Afghanistan food security program, and reinforced the OIC's mission in Kabul. We must build on these concrete steps to restore peace and revive economic and social development in Afghanistan. Engagement with Kabul authorities is the only way to address Afghanistan's humanitarian situation. Afghan authorities have more trust in the OIC than any other international organization. I am happy to inform you that an ulama delegation of the OIC visited Kabul and exchanged views with authorities there, to which the Secretary General has also alluded. Excellencies, the Trust Fund must emerge as a credible vehicle to challenge resources not only by the OIC but also by the international community and international organizations. This Trust Fund needs more resources to provide credible assistance platforms for the Afghan people and forge partnership with the international community and donor organizations. The OIC has a real chance to enhance its leadership on Afghanistan. Also, sufficient financial resources were allocated to the Special Envoy on Afghanistan when we met for our 48th ministerial meeting in Islamabad. With our concurrences and Saudi Arabia's support, we have managed to operationalize the Office of the Special Envoy. He has undertaken consultations with all relevant stakeholders and visited regional and other countries. I look forward to receiving his report. While I encourage you all to continue to support the Office of the Special Envoy, it is also time to assess results from the work that the Special Envoy is undertaking. It is our hope and wish that the Special Envoy's efforts should lead to showcasing at least one major program in the near future. Where the OIC is leading efforts to mitigate Afghanistan's grave humanitarian and economic crisis, the OIC countries and Afghanistan's neighbors are also well placed to help Afghan authorities to develop effective strategies to eliminate the terrorist threat from ISIS and other terrorist groups in Afghanistan, including the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, ETIM, IMU, and Al-Qaeda. Excellencies, we must also address the several unresolved festering conflicts within the Islamic world. The Muslim world has been beset by conflict and violence, often as a consequence of foreign intervention. More than 70% of today's global conflicts, disputes, and security challenges are within the OIC countries. Commensurate with the status of the OIC, we must evolve its institutional framework and tools to address the challenges of peace and security within the Islamic world. It is important that we identify how the OIC can equip itself with the tools required to promote conflict prevention, mediation, reconciliation, and peace building within and outside the Muslim world. I am pleased that discussions on fully activating the OIC's peace and security architecture, as called for in the Islamabad Declaration, have commenced. I thank the Secretary General for initiating formal exchanges on this issue, and I also thank you. I encourage you to share your views on how the OIC can devise processes to address contemporary challenges and conflicts confronting the Muslim Ummah. On my part, I suggest that the General Secretariat undertakes a comprehensive gap analysis of the OIC peace and security-related institutional frameworks in comparison to similarly situated regional and sub-regional organizations. Develop a roadmap for regular engagement and discussions to feed into the ministerial engagement on this issue during 2022 and 2023. Excellencies, if we are the masters of our own destiny, the Islamic world and each nation and each of our nations must achieve genuine economic independence. Most of the Muslim countries belong to the global south. Underdevelopment, poverty, and climate change remain a serious threat to future security and stability of our societies. In an era of economic, financial unpredictability, development partnerships amongst OIC member states are of vital importance. During the current UN General Assembly session, the OIC countries must work with developing countries to address this triple challenge of recovery from the COVID pandemic, achievement of the SDGs, and the existential threat of climate change. To forge such a partnership, the OIC countries must mobilize international support for a comprehensive recovery and development strategy, including the comprehensive debt relief, expanded concessional finance, and the redistribution of at least half of the unutilized SDRs in developing countries. The OIC must also strengthen its capacity to develop new and emerging technologies. We should synergize the scientific and intellectual pool in the Muslim world and fully utilize the platform of ComStech to achieve the OIC STI Agenda 2026. Excellencies, as a result of catastrophic floods in Pakistan, have so tragically illustrated, climate change poses an existential threat to humanity. We are most grateful to all our brothers and sisters in the Islamic world who have responded with generous assistance to help us recover from the unprecedented floods. Pakistan will bounce back stronger and better due to the resilience of our people. Pakistan is impacted by global impacts of climate change despite our rather negligible emissions reduction contribution. Pakistan is today the ground zero of the impact of climate change. It is heartening that one of our OIC members, Egypt, is to host the annual climate talks and will lead the efforts for the next year. Pakistan supports their efforts, and I'm confident that COP27 will renew political will and deploy tools to finally mobilize the much-awaited $100 billion plus promise in climate finance. allocate half for adaptation, establish a financing facility to compensate developing countries for loss and damage, urge the industrialized countries to achieve net minus carbon emissions by 2050, and to fund the extra costs of climate mitigation by developing countries. Excellencies, as we protect our sovereignty, we must also protect our faith. Islamophobia is a reality. Today, Islamophobia is manifested in negative profiling of Muslims, stigmatization, deliberate vandalization of the Islamic symbols and holy sites, killings by cow vigilantes, discriminatory laws and policies, ban on the hijab, attacks on mosques, and anti-Muslim migration policies. The worst manifestation of Islamophobia is the Vidva-inspired India, driven by the ideology of hate against Muslims. The RSS regime is executing its centuries-old plan to transform India into an exclusively Hindu state. We are particularly alarmed by the recent calls by extremist groups for genocide against Indian Muslims. Calls from some of India's ruling party leaders for Akhund Bharat implies an irreverent agenda of expansion and aggression. We have all welcomed the adaptation of the UN General Assembly's landmark resolution on behalf of the OIC countries designating the 15th of March as the International Day to Combat Islamophobia. The momentum generated by this resolution should be maintained. We should strengthen the OIC's Islamophobia observatory. We look forward to the OIC Secretary General's appointment of a special envoy on Islamophobia, as decided at the Islamabad Foreign Ministers Conference. The OIC countries should also urge the UN Secretary General to formulate an action plan in coordination with OIC countries to halt and reverse Islamophobia and convene a special General Assembly meeting on combating Islamophobia. The 57-member OIC is the largest international organization after the United Nations. At this inflection point in history, we confront multiple challenges, but there are also new opportunities for the OIC to seize and play a major role in reshaping the content and structures of the emerging era. Pakistan will work with all OIC member states to mobilize our collective endeavors to this end. I thank you all.